He told everyone I was paranoid. My own children laughed at me behind my back, convinced I was too weak to fight back. And my best friend. She was the one in my husband's arms, planning to take my home, my life, everything I'd built. But weakness was just the mask I let them see. Because while they plotted my destruction, I was recording every word, and by the time I struck back, it was already too late for them. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Let's get into the story. I used to say our house sounded like Sunday on a Tuesday. Coffee, dripping sneakers, thumping the dog, nosing the back door while sprinklers clicked. Our ranch sat under a trimmed maple on Briar Lane flag on the porch bikes in the gravel, a hand-painted mailbox. The Carters. My kingdom was modest and busy scuffed baseboards, lemon detergent, a calendar so crowded it looked like confetti. I believed in what we built there, a life made of small choices that add up to safety. Daniel kissed my cheek every morning before the commute. Back by 6, he'd say, tapping the watch I bought the year he made partner. His smile could win juries and church cook-offs easy and warm, and I used to think it belonged only to me. Olivia was 16, captain of debate, all legs and sharp questions. Jack was 14, elbows and jokes, hoodie and headphones, forever leaving cereal bowls in strange places like the piano bench. We were the family that showed up. I ran the PTA budget committee, kept the neighborhood watch clipboard, coordinated the meal train when Mrs. Ellis had her hip replaced. On Sundays, I taught at church. If I didn't know all the birthdays, I knew the allergies. Our life was small kindnesses, shoveling a driveway before dawn, dropping off notes to a sick classmate, staying late to stack chairs after meetings no one wanted but everyone needed. Family to me was sacred. My parents built their marriage on calloused hands and quiet apologies. They taught me loyalty is a daily practice, not a mood. I married Daniel with that belief in my bones. We didn't keep score. We kept promises, honesty, kids' first phones in the basket at dinner. When the porch light glowed and our windows made warm squares on the lawn, I thought we did it. We made a place that is safe because we are true. If you listen to any house, you can hear when the rhythm changes. For us, it began like a skipped beat. Daniel started working late more often. 6 became 8. 8 became don't wait up. He came home one week with a new cologne a client had given him, sharp, unfamiliar. When I hugged him, it felt like someone else's husband for a heartbeat before it became mine again. His phone, once abandoned on the counter, began traveling with him like a third hand. It buzzed during dinner, and he'd stand apologetic to take the call by the back door where the porch light threw his shadow long and thin. Vendor, he'd say. New client. He'd kiss my hair to seal the answer. I told myself it was a busy season. In law, busy seasons can last years. The kids shifted too, almost imperceptibly. Olivia's room used to hum with study groups and sticky notes. Lately her door stayed closed and her tone went edged. Mom, you don't get it, became her refrain, as if motherhood had erased my memory of 16. Jack. My peacemaker retreated into the blue glow of his screen. He laughed at things I couldn't hear and shrugged when I asked about homework. He started staying late at the park, swearing it was pickup basketball, even when his shoes said he hadn't played. At dinner, conversation thinned. I'd set a loaf of bread on the table and watch hands reach without eyes looking up. Grace got quicker. Daniel's plate stayed full longer. Olivia rolled her eyes at questions about debate. Jack said fine so often it stopped meaning anything. I bought a 1,000-piece puzzle thinking we could build something while words found their way back. The box sat unopened on the hutch like a dare I kept losing. I tried to stitch us together with traditions. Friday pizza phones in the basket, ask me anything cards under the napkins. I slipped notes into lunch boxes like when they were little crooked hearts, a bad joke, a reminder to be kind. Olivia turned hers into a coaster. Jack's ended up wadded in the washing machine, the ink bled into a blue bruise. Daniel smiled at my efforts the way you smile at a child's magic trick when you already know the secret. Some nights when he thought I was asleep, I'd hear his voice low in the kitchen. Our house carries sound, and the words were more rhythm than content. A soft laugh, a question, a pause before goodbye. The calls ended with a warmth that didn't belong to invoices or briefs. When he came to bed, he smelled like mint, and that new cologne settling on the far edge, as if the middle of the mattress had become a river we wouldn't ford. I told myself stories to keep the shape of our life intact. Big case, demanding client, kids testing limits. Every mother I know has a drawer of explanations like that, folded stories we smooth because the alternative is admitting we might have missed something growing teeth in the dark. On the Tuesday it shifted for good. I chaired a PTA budget meeting in the church fellowship hall. Fluorescent lights hummed. We argued over band uniforms and rinsed coffee urns that would taste like old meetings forever. I drove home past porch lights and pumpkins caving in from last month's cold snap, feeling that honest tired you earn from doing the unglamorous work no one claps for. At the last stoplight before our street, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I didn't check it. Jack once asked me to promise I wouldn't read at red lights, and I keep promises. I turned onto Briar Lane and pulled into the driveway as the garage door creaked open. It was a text from Daniel's sister Maya. We swap recipes and birthday reminders. It's always daylight between us. But this message came at 9:47 p.m., and it wasn't a lemon bar link. 2 sentences glowed on the screen, pale and impossible. Don't go home tonight. I sat in the driveway staring at Maya's text. Don't go home tonight. The porch light burned steady, throwing a halo over the welcome mat I'd bought with Daniel's initials stitched in cursive. Inside, my husband and kids were supposed to be waiting for me, the leftovers from dinner cooling on the counter. Nothing about it made sense. My thumb hovered over the call button before I shoved the phone back into my purse. Instead of pulling into the garage, I backed out, turned left instead of right, and let the road to Maya's house guide me on instinct. Maya lived 15 minutes away in a townhouse near the high school. The drive blurred. My mind clattered through possibilities: gas leak, break-in, accident. But her text had no exclamation points, no explanation. Just that quiet, sharp command: don't go home. By the time I parked outside her place, my hands were damp against the wheel. She opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes rimmed red, her shoulders hunched like she'd been carrying a weight too heavy. "Evelyn," she whispered. "Come in. Quick." Inside, the house smelled like coffee gone cold. She led me straight to the living room without small talk. On the coffee table sat a laptop, its screen glowing in the dim room. Maya wrung her hands. "I didn't know how to tell you. I've been sitting on this for weeks, praying I was wrong." A dread settled into my chest, heavy as wet cement. "Tell me what." Maya pressed play. The video showed my kitchen, the same white cabinets and fruit bowl I'd wiped clean that morning. Daniel walked in, but he wasn't alone. Marissa was with him, my best friend. We'd met through church years ago, traded recipes, swapped school pickup duties. She was at our 4th of July barbecue holding sparklers with Olivia. In the footage, she leaned against my counter like she owned it. Daniel kissed her, not the polite kind, but the kind I used to get when the kids weren't around. I made a sound low and sharp like someone gutting an animal. My knees buckled and Maya steadied me by the arm. "Evelyn, it gets worse," she whispered. The video jumped. Another day. Marissa at my dining table, her manicured hands flipping through papers, my papers. Daniel beside her, pointing things out, laughing like they were planning a vacation. And then the camera angle shifted. Olivia walked in backpack slung off one shoulder. She sat down, handed Daniel a folder. "These are the forms you wanted me to get from Mom's desk," she said. Clear as day. Daniel kissed her forehead proud while Marissa ruffled her hair like she was the second mother. My throat closed. Olivia, my daughter, helping them. The video continued. Jack entered next, holding a set of keys. My spare office keys I kept in the kitchen drawer. "Don't lose them," Daniel told him. Jack nodded solemnly. "I'll put them back after you're done." I pressed my hands to my mouth, fighting bile. My children. My babies who used to make me Mother's Day cards with stick figures and lopsided hearts. In the footage, they looked comfortable, practiced like this wasn't the first time they'd been asked to help. I turned away, but Maya caught my shoulders. I know it feels like the ground just opened up, but you need to see." "I can't," My voice cracked broken glass in my throat. "You have to," she said, gentle but firm. "Because this isn't just an affair. They're pulling the kids into it. It's poison, Evelyn." I forced myself to face the screen again. One more clip: Daniel and Marissa laughing in my living room while Olivia texted on her phone. "Mom will never know," she said casually. Daniel smiled. "She doesn't need to." Something inside me shattered. A sound left me raw and animal, half sob, half scream. I pressed a fist against my ribs like I could hold my heart together. Maya wrapped her arms around me, whispering, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Tears blurred everything. Betrayal spread through me like fire, licking up old memories. Daniel proposing under the oak tree at my parents' farm. Marissa holding my newborn Jack while I caught my breath. Olivia in pigtails handing Daniel his Father's Day card. Every memory warped, twisted. "I have to confront him," I gasped, clutching the edge of the coffee table. "I have to go right now." Maya grabbed my wrists. "No. Listen to me. If you walk in screaming tonight, he'll deny it, the kids will cover for him, and you'll be painted as the hysterical wife. You need proof. More than this. Enough that he can't twist it back on you." I stared at her through tears. "But they're my children. He's making them lie to me." "I know." Her own eyes filled. "And that's why you have to be smart. Protect yourself first. Then you'll be able to protect them." I sank into the couch chest, heaving, trying to stitch sense into my thoughts. Rage burned under my skin, begging for release, but another part of me, colder, steadier, whispered, "Wait. Observe. Collect." If family could lie so cleanly to my face, then love alone wouldn't save me. Proof would. The decision hardened inside me like cement setting. I wiped my face, forcing my voice into something that almost sounded steady. Then I'll play the part. I'll smile. I'll act clueless. And while they think I'm asleep, I'll be watching. Maya nodded, though tears slipped down her cheeks. That's the Evelyn I know. The drive back felt endless headlights slicing through my haze. Every familiar landmark looked strange: the grocery store where Daniel once met me with roses, the park bench where Marissa and I used to share coffee while our kids played, all poisoned now. When I turned onto Briar Lane, our porch light still glowed, welcoming false. Through the window, I could see shadows moving: Olivia crossing the hall, Jack flopping on the couch, Daniel's silhouette near the kitchen. A perfect family tableau. I parked, wiped my face one last time, and fixed my expression into something soft, unknowing. The actress in me took the stage. Smile at the door, hug, the kids kiss Daniel's cheek. But inside, rage coiled tight and hot, whispering promises. I would not be their fool. The next morning I made pancakes. The smell of butter and sugar filled the kitchen the way it always had, warm and safe, a ritual I thought would anchor me. Daniel walked in wearing his pressed suit, kissed the top of my head, and said, "You're spoiling us." I smiled, careful, steady, while my heart whispered the word liar like a metronome. I played the part. I asked about his cases, reminded Olivia about debate practice, told Jack to grab his gym shoes. It felt like standing in a photograph of my life instead of living it, like the edges had curled and gone brittle. They didn't notice. They couldn't see that behind my calm nods I was memorizing every detail: the way Daniel's phone never left his pocket, the way Olivia avoided my eyes, the way Jack looked tired as though secrets weighed on him. That night, when I asked Daniel about the extra hours he'd been working, he gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Evelyn, you're imagining things. You know how year-end gets clients pushing deadlines, judges trying to clear dockets. Don't overthink." His words pressed down like a hand over my mouth. "You're imagining things." I almost laughed because I had the footage burned into me now. I wasn't imagining, I was pretending. But I nodded anyway. "Of course. I just worry about you." He squeezed my hand like a man reassuring his anxious wife. "I know, and I love that about you. But really, everything's fine." Everything was not fine. At church on Sunday, Olivia sat with Marissa's daughter, whispering and laughing through the sermon. When I leaned in to hush them, Olivia rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might stick. "Mom, it's not 1950. You don't have to be perfect little Mrs. Carter all the time." Her voice carried sharp enough for 2 pews ahead to glance back. I swallowed my shame, pressing a smile into place. Afterward, Marissa hugged me in the fellowship hall, smelling like the same lavender lotion she always used. "Teenagers," she said with a practiced laugh. "They think they know everything." I could see the glint in her eyes, though the one that said, "I know something you don't." Jack, meanwhile, was drifting further. He used to beg me to throw the football with him in the yard. Now, when I asked if he wanted to go for ice cream after school, he muttered, "I'm hanging with Lucas Marissa's son." He spent long evenings over at their house, coming home with stories he wouldn't share, eyes darting whenever I pressed. One night, I found him in the garage scrolling on his phone, whispering into the speaker. When he saw me, he jumped. "Homework," he said quickly, stuffing it into his hoodie. But his math grades had slipped to C's, and the only equation I could see was his loyalty shifting away from me toward them. The betrayal bled into numbers next. I balanced our accounts late at night, coffee going cold beside me. At first, it was little things charges I didn't recognize, amounts that didn't match Daniel's explanations. Then, while combing through the credit statements, I saw it a $200,000 loan taken in my name. My signature was scrawled at the bottom of the documents, a shaky replica. My breath hitched. Daniel had forged me. I printed the papers, tucked them into a manila folder, and hid them in the back of the linen closet behind stacks of old sheets. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the stapler. That money wasn't just debt, it was leverage, proof that he was preparing for a world where I was cut out. The worst blow came quietly on a Wednesday evening. I was walking up the stairs carrying a basket of folded laundry when I heard voices floating from Olivia's room. Her door was cracked. Inside, she and Jack were sprawled across her bed, Marissa perched on the desk chair, her legs crossed like she belonged there. "She still thinks Dad's working late?" Olivia snickered. Marissa chuckled softly, conspiratorial. "Your mom has always been old-fashioned, sweet, but blind." Olivia laughed a bright, sharp sound. Jack chimed in with a joke about my puzzles and PTA meetings. They laughed together, and it cut deeper than any knife. My children, my own children, laughing at me, coached by the woman I'd trusted as a sister. I stood frozen, every fiber of me screaming to burst in, to throw them out, to scream until walls cracked. But I turned and walked back down, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. If I exploded now, they'd win. They'd twist it into hysteria. I needed more. I needed everything. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with Daniel's laptop. He was careless enough to reuse passwords I'd known his since law school days. My hands trembled as I typed it in. His inbox bloomed open, hundreds of messages scrolling like a confession. And then I found them. Emails between Daniel and Marissa, neatly organized under a folder marked Future. "When she's out, we'll file fast," Daniel had written. "Property will transfer smoothly with the loan secured. Kids are already on our side." Marissa's reply: "She'll crumble. She doesn't have the spine to fight back. By Christmas, this house is ours." I stared until the words blurred. By Christmas, this house is ours. The walls around me seemed to pulse, familiar pictures on the mantel suddenly foreign. Every inch of this home I had built, every memory stitched into these rooms, they were planning to strip it all away like I was just an obstacle. I shut the laptop gently, afraid the sound might wake the ghosts of who we used to be. My hands were ice, but fire churned inside me, molten and merciless. I had walked into marriage believing loyalty was unbreakable. Now I knew better. They thought I would crumble. They had no idea what I was becoming. I woke the next morning to the sound of Daniel humming in the shower. He always hummed when he felt in control, like life was bending to his rhythm. I pulled the covers tighter around me and stared at the ceiling. He believed I was blind. He believed the children were his. He believed Marissa's grip on my family was unshakable. Let him. Let them. I would wear the mask they wanted me to wear, and behind it I would sharpen my knives. The role of dutiful wife and mother came naturally enough. I had played it for years. But now every smile I gave was counterfeit, every nod an act, every dinner cooked part of a performance for an audience that didn't know they were being watched in return. The first ally I turned to was Maya. I drove to her house under the guise of dropping off a casserole, and once the door closed behind me, the mask slipped. I found emails, I whispered. My voice cracked, but I forced it steady. They're planning to take the house, to erase me. Maya's face went pale. You have to stop him. Evelyn, this isn't just betrayal, it's war. I know, I said. That's why I need more than hurt feelings. I need evidence that won't crumble in court. Maya squeezed my hands. Then you can't face this alone. Call Clara. The name alone steadied me. Clara Jennings had been my mentor when I was fresh out of college long before Daniel. She was a retired attorney now, widowed sharp as glass even in her 60s. If anyone could guide me, it was her. I met Clara at her home that afternoon, a modest colonial with ivy curling around the porch rails. She opened the door in her cardigan and glasses, but her gaze was still steel. Over tea, I spilled everything. The videos, the loan, the emails. My words tumbled out like stones breaking a dam. Clara listened in silence, her fingers steepled beneath her chin. When I finished, her voice was low and deliberate. You have the beginnings of a case. Fraud, conspiracy, even potential custodial manipulation. But Evelyn, she leaned forward. Once you go down this path, there's no undoing it. You can destroy them, but you'll never get your innocence back. Her words landed like a gavel. Innocence. That fragile belief I'd carried all my life that love protects that family is sacred. It was already broken. What good was innocence when it had been traded for lies? I met Clara's gaze, my spine straightening. Then innocence must die for justice to live. She nodded once solemnly as though I'd passed some unspoken test. Then we'll start with documentation. Record everything. Don't confront. Don't hint. Let them believe you're weak. The moment you show your teeth too early, they'll shred you. So I learned to live in two worlds. By day, I was Evelyn the housewife, passing casseroles at church, cheering Jack at his basketball scrimmage, helping Olivia with her college essays. By night, I was a shadow copying documents onto flash drives, photographing loan statements, recording snippets of Daniel's late-night phone calls. The first time I heard his voice through the recorder, low, intimate speaking Marissa's name, my stomach twisted. I wanted to smash the device. Instead, I labeled the file and slid it into a folder marked Evidence. My heart had to bleed so the case could breathe. I traced the loan through every line item. Payments funneled through accounts I didn't recognize. Withdrawals matched deposits into a joint account with Marissa's name on it. The fraud was blatant, and Daniel had counted on me never looking past the veneer of trust. There were nights when I sat at the kitchen table at 2 a.m., papers spread around me, and felt the weight of it pressing down. I wasn't just building a case. I was dismantling a life. But each time the doubt clawed at me, I remembered Olivia's laughter, Jack's silence, Daniel's dismissive smile. They weren't just plotting against me. They were teaching my children to believe betrayal was strength. One evening, as I folded laundry in the hallway, I heard voices from Olivia's room. Her door was cracked, and through it I saw Marissa seated on the bed, Olivia beside her, their heads bent close. She suspects nothing, Olivia said, her voice dripping with teenage scorn. Mom's too weak to fight back. Marissa's answering chuckle was soft like velvet on a blade. That's why your father loves me. I don't crumble the way she does. My vision tunneled red at the edges. I gripped the laundry basket so hard my knuckles ached. Weak. Too weak to fight back. I backed away before they could see me, my heartbeat pounding like war drums in my chest. If they thought I was weak, they would never see me coming. And that was their first mistake. I set the table like I was preparing for a magazine spread, candles glowing in their glass holders. The good china pulled from the hutch cloth napkins folded into neat triangles. The roast chicken simmered in the oven, rosemary and garlic weaving through the air, warm and inviting. To anyone walking in, it looked like a gesture of peace. A wife smoothing the wrinkles of family discord with food and good manners. That was the mask I wanted them to see. Daniel arrived first, loosening his tie at the door, smiling at me with a studied warmth. "This looks wonderful." His eyes swept the table like he was calculating the worth of every dish. "Just thought it would be nice for us all to be together," I said, my voice honey-sweet. "Like old times." Olivia and Jack came clattering down the stairs, bickering about something trivial. They stopped short when they saw the table, their faces flickering with surprise. "Wow, Mom," Olivia said, smirking. "What's the occasion?" "Trying to impress someone." I smoothed my napkin over my lap. "Just family." The doorbell rang and my stomach clenched, though I kept my face serene. Marissa stepped in wearing a wine-colored dress that caught the candlelight. Her perfume, lavender and citrus, spread into the house like smoke. She hugged me as though we were still best friends, her lips brushing my cheek, her smile razor-sharp. "You didn't have to do all this, Ev," she said lightly. "But I'm glad you did." I welcomed her in my voice steady. It's been too long since we've all sat down together. We gathered around the table. The candles flickered, laughter rose, forks scraped across plates. From the outside, it could have been any family dinner. Inside, I felt the betrayal under my skin like splinters. Daniel carved the chicken, placing the juiciest cuts on Marissa's plate without asking. She brushed his hand as she took it, her fingers lingering a second too long. A spark meant to be invisible except to me. "So, Marissa," Daniel said, his voice casual. "How's the new contract still keeping you busy?" She smiled, glancing at him with something intimate tucked in the corners of her eyes. "Busier than ever. But I've had help." She tapped Olivia's hand across the table. "This one is a natural. Organized, reliable, sharp as a tack." "You should be proud, Ev." Olivia flushed with pride. "Marissa just gets me, Mom. She actually listens." She said it like an accusation, like I had spent 16 years with my ears closed. I forced a smile. "I'm glad you have people supporting you." My fork dug into the chicken breast, tearing it apart like flesh. Jack chimed in, then parroting Daniel's tone with a smugness too big for 14. "Dad says Marissa's been a lifesaver. It's good she's around, Mom. You stress too much about everything." The table swam for a moment, but I kept my face placid, my voice light. "Well, I wouldn't want to get in the way of such a valuable friendship." Laughter bubbled up, Daniel's smooth, Marissa's musical, Olivia's sharp, Jack's awkward echo. It felt like I was sitting outside of my own life, watching strangers occupy it. Cinematic warmth wrapped the room, flickering candlelight, the golden crust of the bread, the rise of steam from the potatoes. But beneath it, betrayal slithered unseen by anyone but me. Every laugh felt rehearsed, every touch choreographed. They were actors in a play they thought I hadn't bought a ticket to. Daniel lifted his wine glass and leaned back, his gaze sweeping the table with practiced ease. "See, Evelyn. This is what family's about. Being able to sit down together, laugh, share a meal." I caught the look Marissa gave him, subtle, a secret shared in silence. Olivia leaned against her like a daughter choosing her mother. Jack nodded, imitating his father's confidence. It was all so seamless, so calculated, that for a moment I almost believed the lie they were spinning, that I was the outsider, the unnecessary piece at the table. But then the fire inside me flared. No. I was the one who had built this family brick by brick, tradition by tradition, sacrifice by sacrifice. They were squatters in a home I had created, feeding on what I gave them while planning to erase me. I felt the heat of the candles on my face, the stem of the glass cool in my hand. My pulse slowed, a strange calm settling over me. Let them laugh. Let them mock. They believed this dinner was proof of my submission, a final act of naivety before I crumbled. But I knew the truth. This was not their triumph. This was my stage. I raised my glass, my voice cutting through their chatter with a clarity that made them all glance up. "Since we're being so honest tonight," I said, my tone smooth, steady, lethal. "I think it's time I share a few things too." I didn't toast. I set my glass down and reached beneath my chair, pulling out the small speaker I'd tucked there before dinner. Daniel's smile froze. Marissa's fork paused mid-air. Olivia glanced at Jack, eyes bright with curiosity, not yet fear. Since we're being so honest, I said, "Let me go first." I tapped play. The kitchen came to life in tinny audio, the same room we were sitting in, the same lamp hum, the soft thunk of a cabinet door. Daniel's voice filled the air low and familiar. "Once she's out, we file fast. With the loan secured, the property transfers clean." Marissa's laugh followed gentle and mean at once. "She'll crumble. She always does. By Christmas, this house is ours." The room went suddenly small. Even the candles seemed to lean closer, listening. Daniel reached for the speaker. I slid it just out of his grasp, calm as a dealer guarding the deck. "Sit," I said. "Evelyn." He warned, that courtroom tone slipping on like a glove. "This is taken out of context." "Here's more," I said, and tapped the next file. Olivia's voice. My daughter bubbled out, flippant and cruel. "Mom's too weak to fight back. She still thinks marriage is a church promise and a casserole." Jack's muffled laugh answered her, a sound that used to be my favorite thing in the world. "She won't see it coming." The sound of my children laughing at me cracked something inside my ribs, but my hands were steady. I let the clip play through the scrape of chairs and the soft click of a phone case. Then I clicked another. Rustling papers, Marissa again smiling on audio. "Sign here, Danny." Then we moved the payments through the joint, no one asks questions. The timestamp chimed at the end, the Tuesday before last, 11:13 p.m. "Turn that off," Daniel snapped. "Now." "No." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. We're going to sit here and listen to the truth because I've been listening to lies for months. He laughed, a brittle sound. "You really think a couple of recordings prove anything? Deepfakes exist. Teens edit audio for fun. You're embarrassing yourself." I slid a manila envelope onto the table and fanned the contents with my fingertips. Copies of the loan, the forged signature beside my real one, the bank's email chain. "It's adorable you think I came to dinner unprepared." Marissa's eyes flicked between the papers and the speaker, the color draining from her face like water from a tipped glass. Olivia stared at the tablecloth, her fingers worrying a thread until it snapped. "What is this?" Jack whispered. "It's your father's handwriting pretending to be mine," I said. "It's a $200,000 loan opened in my name, funneled through accounts that conveniently line up with deposits into Marissa's business." I opened another folder. Screenshots, transfers, a simple story told in numbers. "And this is the bank fraud department confirming the signatures don't match. This," I tapped the top page, "is the incident number from the police report I filed this morning. And this," I slid out a crisp letter, "is a retainer agreement signed by my attorney. Her name is Clara Jennings. She's very good at taking apart men who think women won't fight back." Marissa's breathing quickened. She set her fork down and pressed her napkin to her lips like she might be sick. "Evelyn, listen to me. Do not speak to me like we are friends," I said. She flinched. Daniel surged to his feet so quickly his chair slammed into the wall. "This is insane," he barked. "You think you can accuse me of fraud and sit here like the Queen of England? This is my house, my kids." I didn't move. "It's our house until a judge says otherwise. And yes, I think I can accuse you because you did it. You put a pen in your hand and made my name into a weapon. You dragged our children into your lies and handed my best friend the keys to destroy me." "Stop," Olivia said, voice too high. "Dad wouldn't. Mom, he—" She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. What she saw there made the bravado slide off her face. "Is this real?" Jack's chin trembled. Dad Daniel aimed his fury at me. "You planted this. You goaded them. You're poisoning the kids. I didn't have to plant what was already rotting," I said. "But I did document it. That's what you're hearing, you in your own voice. Marissa in hers. Olivia too." "Jack." I have you returning my office keys after your father borrowed them. Olivia's chair scraped back. You recorded me. Without telling me, I recorded criminal conspiracies unfolding in my home. I said each word clean and cold. You will learn the difference. Marissa pushed her chair away and stood swaying. Her hand went to her throat. I can't, Evelyn. I didn't want. The sentence splintered. She grabbed the edge of the table, then slid to her knees as if the floor had tilted. The room ducked around her as she folded breath, hitching neat hair fallen messily across her face. Panic carved itself into her features, ugly and sudden. Daniel tried to go to her. I raised a hand and he didn't take another step. Sit down, I said. Touch me or any of this evidence and the cloud backup goes straight to every inbox that matters. Bank police lawyer Maya. I suggest you sit. He lowered himself slowly, fury tightening every line of him. The candles pooled light on his clenched hands. Olivia started to cry, a raw, startled sob like a child who has fallen, and finally sees the blood. I didn't know, she said, then stopped because the truth caught in her throat. I thought. Her eyes found Marissa, found Daniel. You told me it was just paperwork. Jack's voice was small. Dad said it was to help. I wanted to take their faces in my hands and tell them it would be okay. But okay had left this house a long time ago. You helped, I said. And there are consequences. You were not the architect, but you poured the concrete. The room turned into a storm. Daniel's anger cracked like thunder. Marissa's breaths rasped like wind through a broken window. The kids' tears came hot and shocked, the kind that sting long after they dry. You're going to prison. Daniel spat at me as if saying it would conjure a reality where my mask had slipped and his didn't have cracks. False reporting. Wiretapping. You don't know what you've done. Everything I did was legal, I said. Clara reviewed it. The cameras were inside my home. The accounts are ours. The bank has already flagged the loan. The police have an open file for forgery and fraud. If you want to talk charges, we can talk charges. He slammed his palm onto the table. The candles flickered. You're destroying this family. You destroyed it, I said softly. I'm just turning the lights on. Silence fell heavy and complete. Somewhere the oven clicked as it cooled. The smell of rosemary turned sour. Marissa made a small animal sound and crawled to her purse, hands shaking. I need my inhaler. She fumbled, knocking her lipstick to the floor. Olivia dropped to help hiccuping sobs. Jack's hands hovered uselessly over napkins as if paper could clean this. Daniel stared at me with a hatred I had never seen on his face, not in 2 decades of knowing him. It was naked pure. He needed me to be small for it to make sense. He needed me to crumble for the story to hold. I stood gathering the dossiers, sliding them back into the envelope with care. I had been careful for months. I would keep being careful until there was nothing left they could take. Daniel leaned forward, his voice gone low and venomous. You think you've won? You'll have nothing without me. The weeks after that dinner blurred into headlines and handcuffs. Daniel thought he could out-talk the bank, that his reputation in courtrooms would shield him. But paperwork doesn't bend to charisma, and forged signatures don't lie under scrutiny. The morning they came for him, 2 black SUVs pulled up to the curb, neighbors gawking through blinds. I watched from the porch as federal agents walked my husband out in cuffs. His suit wrinkled, his face twisted with rage. He caught my eye once, and for a moment I saw the man I married. Then he spat at the ground like I was the enemy that ruined him. The papers called it fraud of the suburbs. 200,000 wasn't a fortune in his world, but the deceit made it scandalous. Clients dropped him. Partners erased his name from the firm website overnight. And suddenly the powerful Daniel Carter was a man in shackles, the law he worshipped now snapping shut on him like iron jaws. Marissa's collapse came faster. Her husband, quiet, unassuming Scott, filed for divorce within 48 hours of the news breaking. He had lawyers lined up and a custody petition that painted her as unfit. The recordings, the police files, the bank statements, they weren't just mine now. They were public record, and Scott wielded them like a sword. Within weeks, custody of Lucas shifted into his hands, and Marissa's once polished life shrank to rented apartments and desperate calls she left unanswered on my voicemail. But the harshest fallout landed on Olivia and Jack. Teenagers live in ecosystems more ruthless than any courtroom. By the second day, their friends had heard the recordings. Screenshots circled through group chats. Olivia walked into school and found whispers trailing her like a shadow. Someone taped a note to her locker, "Weak like your mom," or "Cruel like your dad." She tore it down, but by lunch she was sitting alone, her tray untouched, mascara smudged. Jack, who once had a crowd of boys trailing him to practice, found himself benched. Coaches don't like distractions, and teammates don't want scandal. He came home silent, throwing his backpack in a corner, slamming his door. I heard them whisper about me at night, rage, blame, confusion. Olivia sobbing that I'd ruined everything. Jack accusing me of loving revenge more than family. Each word was a knife. I wanted to crawl into their rooms, hold them, tell them I didn't want this either. But betrayal has a cost, and sometimes love means letting your children feel the weight of their choices. The storm inside me raged anger at Daniel, grief for the family I thought I had, sorrow for the kids twisted into his web. But beneath it was clarity, cold and hard. They needed boundaries sharper than comfort. They needed to know actions matter. So one Sunday afternoon, I gathered them at the kitchen table. The same table where the lies had unfolded, where laughter had once been our anchor. "You're going to your grandparents?" I said, my voice even. "For a year." Olivia shot up her chair, screeching. "What? You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I am. You need stability away from this circus, and you need to understand consequences. Loyalty means something. Trust means something. You broke it. This isn't punishment. It's survival." Jack's lip trembled. "So you're just sending us away?" Tears burned my throat. "I'm giving you space to grow back into yourselves without Daniel's shadow, without Marissa's poison. I love you too much to let you keep living like this." Olivia stormed off, muttering curses under her breath. Jack stayed a moment longer, his eyes wet, his jaw tight. "I hate him," he whispered finally. "But I don't know how to hate him enough." Then he left, and the house echoed with silence. Packing their bags broke me in places I didn't know existed. Folding Olivia's sweaters, tucking Jack's basketball shoes into his duffel, it felt like erasing myself from their daily lives. When the grandparents' car pulled away, I stood on the porch until the taillights disappeared. Only then did I let myself sob, doubled over my chest, tearing with grief. But grief didn't stop the process. Lawyers drafted papers. Court hearings dragged. The community that once called us the perfect family now muttered in grocery aisles, pity and judgment braided together. I held my head high because I had no other choice. Finally, the day came. I sat in Clara's office, a pen in my hand, the divorce decree spread before me. My name printed beside his one last tether. Daniel had fought from his cell, calling it unjust, calling me vindictive. But fraud is fraud, and no judge would hand the house to a man with forged signatures on his record. Clara slid the pen toward me. "It's time." The papers weighted clean and final. I pressed the tip of the pen to the line and felt the weight of 20 years balanced there. First kisses, children's births. Christmas mornings, vacations. Every whispered, "I love you now." Ash in my mouth. My hand didn't shake. I wrote my name in clean, sharp letters. And as I set the pen down, my voice came steady, colder than I thought it could ever be. "I release you, Daniel, and I bury what we were." The first morning alone in the house felt like stepping into a cathedral stripped bare. The echoes followed me from room to room, the slam of Olivia's door, Jack's laughter on the stairs, Daniel's footsteps pacing the kitchen during late-night calls. Now there was only silence. I thought it would crush me. Instead, it steadied me. The loan payments were frozen once the fraud case stuck, but the bills kept coming. For the first time in 20 years, I had to think not as a wife, not as a mother, but as a woman standing on her own 2 feet. I dusted off my old certifications, applied for part-time work at the community center, and found myself tutoring kids in reading and math. The paycheck was small, but it was mine. Each dollar felt like a seed planted in new soil. Neighbors I thought had forgotten me showed up with casseroles, lawn mowing offers, even envelopes of grocery gift cards. Mrs. Turner from down the street squeezed my hand after church one Sunday and whispered, "We always knew you were stronger than them. We just needed you to see it too." Their faith in me became my scaffolding. The gossip never stopped entirely, suburbs thrive on it, but the tide shifted. Instead of pitying looks, I began to see nods of respect, quiet smiles of encouragement. Clara was my anchor. She wasn't just my lawyer anymore. She became something like a second mother, sharp, where my own had been soft. She'd invite me over for tea and force me to write out goals on legal pads, rebuild credit, re-establish savings, get the locks changed. "One brick at a time, Evelyn," she'd say. "You don't rebuild a house in a day, but you do start laying the foundation the day after the fire." She sat across from me once, her glasses perched low, and said, "You're free now, you know. That's what no one tells you about betrayal. It destroys, yes, but it also cuts the ties that were strangling you. You get to define yourself without illusions." Her words settled into me like stone. I had been clinging to the ruins of an image-perfect wife, devoted mother, unshakable family. That image was ash now, and in the ash I could see the outlines of someone I had almost forgotten: Evelyn before Daniel, before Marissa. The woman who had ambition, faith, laughter that wasn't borrowed from anyone else's script. Evenings became my own again. I walked the neighborhood at sunset, waving at the same people who once waved at us. I read books I'd been too tired to open for years. I painted the dining room walls a bold shade of blue, erasing the beige Daniel insisted on. Every brushstroke felt like reclaiming air, and yet freedom was a complicated gift. The silence of the house cut both ways. I didn't have to hear Daniel's lies or Marissa's false laughter, but I also didn't hear Olivia's footsteps thundering upstairs, or Jack's muffled guitar strums from the garage. Their absence was a wound I pressed on daily. At night I replayed the last time I saw them, Jack whispering that he didn't know how to hate his father enough, Olivia storming off without looking back. Sending them to their grandparents had been necessary, but the ache of it lived in my bones. I told myself tough love was still love, even if it broke me. Months passed, each one layering strength over the cracks. Court dates faded into the rearview mirror. Daniel's name left the newspapers, replaced by fresher scandals. Marissa slipped into obscurity, whispers of her drinking too much and chasing jobs that never stuck. My world shrank to what I could control: faith work, small acts of self-sufficiency. For the first time, I trusted myself. Not the image of myself Daniel had praised when it served him, not the mask I wore for the community, but me. Betrayal had gutted me, but it had also burned away the illusions I'd clung to. I was scarred, yes, but scar tissue is stronger than the skin it replaces. One gray morning in late autumn, I found a letter in the mailbox, the envelope thin and familiar. My name written in Olivia's handwriting, sharp, impatient strokes, softened just enough to be vulnerable. I tore it open on the porch, the chill biting my fingers. The letter was brief, almost hesitant. "Mom, I was wrong. Can we talk?" My knees nearly buckled. The world around me, the crunch of leaves underfoot, the wind rustling through bare branches, went quiet. For the first time in months, I felt hope cut through the grief. The diner smelled like bacon grease and black coffee, the kind of place where the waitresses called everyone honey, and the booths still had duct tape holding the vinyl together. It wasn't glamorous, but it was neutral territory. No ghosts of our house, no shadows of Daniel or Marissa. Just 2 people and a table between them. Olivia was already there when I arrived, sitting stiffly in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of cocoa she hadn't touched. For a moment, I just stood in the doorway watching her. My daughter, 16, going on 30, shoulders too heavy for her age, eyes rimmed red like she hadn't slept. She looked smaller than I remembered, folded into herself. "Mom," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. The word was quiet, tentative, not the sharp blade she had wielded against me months earlier. "Olivia." I kept my voice steady, neutral. No accusations, no comfort yet. She fiddled with the mug, her eyes fixed on the swirl of whipped cream melting into the chocolate. "I don't even know where to start." "The beginning usually works," I said. A tremor ran through her as she exhaled. "I was scared. Dad, he made it sound like you were crazy. Marissa kept telling me you'd never understand me, that she was the only one who did. And I wanted so badly to belong to someone who seemed to see me. I didn't realize how much they were using me until—" Her voice cracked and she pressed her sleeve to her eyes. "Until you played those recordings. Until everyone at school started calling me a liar's daughter." Her words pierced me because beneath them I heard the truth of manipulation, the same web that had once caught me. Daniel had twisted her loyalty the way he'd twisted mine years ago. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked softly. "Because I thought you'd just crumble." She looked up then, meeting my eyes. "But you didn't. You were stronger than any of us. And I hated you for it because it meant I was wrong. About everything." The diner clattered around us, orders shouted to the kitchen forks scraping plates, but at our booth, silence held tight. I reached across the table not to touch her, but to anchor my words. "Olivia, you may always be my daughter. Nothing changes that. But trust will take years to rebuild. If you want me in your life, you'll have to earn it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She nodded, fierce and broken at once. "I'll earn it. I swear, Mom." For the first time in months, I let myself smile at her. Not wide, not soft, but real. "Then we'll start here. Cocoa in a diner, one step at a time." We talked until the sun dipped low about little things, school assignments, her grandparents' quiet house, the ache she carried every time someone mentioned her father. She didn't ask me to erase the past. I didn't offer to. Instead, we laid bricks of something new, one conversation at a time. Jack came later. Not at the diner, but at the house, knocking on the door one rainy afternoon. He stood there drenched, clutching his basketball like it was the only anchor he had left. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking on the word. "I don't want to be like him." I pulled him inside, wrapped a towel around his shoulders, and let him sit in silence until he spoke again. He told me about the shame at school, the whispers, the guilt that gnawed at him every time he thought about laughing with Olivia at my expense. He didn't cry much, Jack never did, but the way his shoulders shook said everything. I told him the same thing I told Olivia, that he would always be my son, but love without boundaries becomes weakness. "You'll have to show me Jack. Through choices. Through time. Words aren't enough anymore." He nodded, eyes wet, and whispered, "I will. I promise." That night, after both of them had gone back to their grandparents, I sat alone in the living room. The walls still bore faint outlines where family photos used to hang, empty rectangles of memory. The silence pressed in, but it no longer felt like a void. It felt like space, room to grow, room to rebuild, room to breathe. I thought about Clara's words about innocence dying so justice could live. She was right. Betrayal had destroyed the family I thought I had. But it had also forced me to stop living in illusions, to stop anchoring my worth to Daniel's approval, or Marissa's friendship, or even my children's temporary loyalty. I had learned to balance compassion with boundaries, love with strength. I could forgive, but I would never again surrender myself so completely that someone could carve me hollow. The final papers from the court arrived in the mail 2 weeks later. Divorce finalized. Assets divided. The name Daniel Carter no longer tethered to mine. I signed the last page not with anger, but with clarity. The woman who had entered that marriage was gone. The woman who left it was unbreakable. As I set the pen down, the house quiet and steady around me, I whispered the truth aloud, not for Daniel, not for Marissa, not even for Olivia or Jack, but for me. I lost a family built on lies, but I gained myself, and that's a foundation no one will ever break again. And with that, Evelyn's chapter closes, not with the family she once clung to, but with the strength she built from the ashes. If this story struck a chord, make sure to subscribe for more stories like this. Share your thoughts below. We read every comment, and your voices shape what comes next. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Revenge Served Cold. We'll see you next time.